Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening up your sources to get into something really deep from Carl Jung. It's about one of his most complex, maybe even unsettling insights.
Yeah, we're not talking about, everyday anxieties
Well,
here.
definitely not. Our mission is to really understand what Jung saw as his most dangerous discovery.
Yeah.
It's about the psychological price you pay for having this kind of superior perception.
Yeah.
Seeing things others just completely miss.
Exactly. And what's really key here, Jung wasn't framing this as some kind of standard mental illness. Not at all.
Right.
He was describing a state of awareness, of consciousness, that's almost too powerful, maybe too advanced for its time, so advanced that the person can't really handle it without some pretty severe psychological fallout.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and the sources we're looking at today, they really detail why this incredibly clear sight often isn't a gift, It's more like a psychological landmine.
A landmine, wow, okay.
Mm-hmm. It can lead you down a path to isolation, maybe even breakdown, or, and this is the crucial part, if you learn how to manage it, it could transform you, turn you into what some might call a consciousness pioneer.
Okay, consciousness pioneer. I like that. Let's dive right into that. So our goal today, define this ability, differentiated perception, Jung called it, then explore why it's potentially so destructive, and most importantly, give you the red flags, the warning signs, and maybe a kind of protection protocol to navigate this stuff.
Yeah, survival strategies, basically. Because you first have to grasp what this kind of clarity feels like, what it is, before you can understand the dangers it attracts.
Makes sense. So let's start with that definition. Differentiated perception. What exactly are we talking about? The sources say it's rare, often linked to the introverted, intuitive type, maybe 1% of people.
Around that, yeah. And it's way beyond just being sensitive or empathetic. This is like instantly reading micro-expressions, sensing emotions someone's trying hard to hide, knowing when someone's lying, picking up on these really complex, unconscious psychological dynamics that just fly under everyone else's radar.
It's an emotional X-ray machine, you said.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. You see straight through the social masks, the polite little lies we all tell ourselves and each other. Jung saw this quite early in his work.
There was that patient example, right? From around 1913.
Exactly. A highly intuitive woman. She could apparently walk into a room and just know who secretly resented whom, who was putting on a brave face about their marriage, who was hiding deep emotional pain. Just sensed it.
And Jung actually checked her perceptions, found them accurate.
Remarkably so, according to the sources, which is pretty startling, but here's the twist. She couldn't really use this ability to her advantage. It caused her immense distress.
But why? Why wouldn't that make her, I don't know, an amazing therapist or even a spy or something? It seems like a superpower.
Because that level of clarity, well, it's perceived as a threat to the collective, to the status quo.
A threat.
Think about it. If you consistently see what others either can't see or, maybe more importantly, won't see, you become. Jung had this phrase, a mirror that society cannot bear to look into.
Wow. Okay. A mirror society can't bear to look into.
And that creates what he called the problem of the superior function. Your greatest asset, your unique strength, becomes your heaviest burden because it sets you apart from the psychological consensus reality.
Okay, consensus reality.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that a bit. When you say sets you apart, it's more than just feeling lonely, right? It sounds deeper.
Oh, much deeper. There are three big dangers here, really. First, yes, the isolation. You become this sort of solitary observer, understanding the whole game, but unable to really play along naturally because just being yourself kind of rocks the boat.
Okay, so isolation is one. What else?
Second, and this is a big one, collective unconscious disruption.
Collective unconscious disruption. What does that mean in, everyday terms? These collective agreements you mentioned.
Think of them as the unwritten rules, the shared illusions that keep things running smoothly in families, workplaces, groups, We all pretend Dad's temper isn't that bad, or we ignore the fact that the project is doomed, that kind of thing.
Okay. The elephants in the room we all agree not to talk about.
Precisely. And someone with this differentiated perception, they don't even have to say anything. Just by existing, just by seeing the truth, they implicitly challenge these unspoken agreements. They destabilize the whole fragile structure.
Not by attacking, but just by reflecting reality.
Exactly. And the group, the collective, often responds defensively. It tries to neutralize the disturbance, which often means neutralizing or getting rid of the person doing the perceiving.
Okay, so the group pushes them out or attacks them to protect its comfortable illusions, as heavy. Was the third danger?
The third is about your own internal rail dissolving. Jung called it participation mystique.
participation mystique.
Right. It's when you're constantly bombarded, just flooded with all this external psychological stuff, the feelings, the hidden motives, the lies, the resentments of others, your own boundaries start to blur.
So you can't tell what's yours and what's theirs.
Pretty much, like being at a massive concert and suddenly realizing you're feeling this intense anger or sadness, but you have no idea if it's actually your feeling or just the collective vibe you've absorbed. You soak up so much unconscious material from others that you lose touch with your own authentic self, your own core, which can lead to what some might call psychological annihilation. You lose your identity, you become sort of possessed by the collective. It's a terrifying loss of self.
Okay, that really clarifies the cost of clarity. It's not subtle.
Yeah.
Now, Jung apparently broke down how this superior perception shows up differently depending on the person's type, right? To help us recognize it.
Yes, he did differentiate it. For instance, the feeling intuitive. This person tends to absorb others' emotions almost completely. They live in this state of perpetual emotional contagion. They feel the emotional weather of any room intensely and often can't sort out their own feelings from the mix.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Then you have the thinking intuitive. This is the type who often predicts behavioral outcomes. They just see where a relationship is inevitably heading or why a business venture will fail long before there's any concrete evidence. Through this unconscious pattern recognition, they perceive the underlying dynamics, the trajectory of things in a way others simply can't yet.
Okay, and the third?
The sensation intuitive. This type often experiences psychological states physically. They might literally feel someone else's stress as tension in their own body or sense an impending illness in themselves or others before any symptoms show up.
Right.
Like a human early warning system.
Fascinating. And the last one, the rarest, the pure intuitive.
Ah, yes. This highlights the risk we talked about. The pure intuitive sees everything. The patterns, the emotions, the future possibilities, the whole hidden landscape. But they struggle to organize it. They can't really structure or articulate what they perceive coherently.
Oh, yeah.
Usually because they lack a strong enough auxiliary function that's the secondary psychological tool, like thinking or feeling or sensing, that would help them sort and process the sheer volume of intuitive data.
So it's like having this amazing input, but no software to make sense of it.
Exactly. Just overwhelming data, constantly flooding in, leading to this state of perpetual overwhelm, confusion, maybe even feeling fragmented.
Right. So the takeaway isn't just knowing your type, but realizing this level of perception absolutely demands some kind of structure, some integration. Otherwise, the perception itself becomes the danger.
Precisely. Which brings us to the external threats. Once we understand the internal pressure cooker, we have to look at what kind of negative attention this clarity attracts.
Okay, shifting gears from the person with the perception to the threat to them.
Yes. We need to talk about the person who needs to attack that mirror we mentioned earlier.
And this leads us straight to Jung's analysis of what he saw as the most dangerous psychological dynamic, shadow projection combined with conviction.
Exactly. The highly perceptive person is almost the perfect target for this, because they naturally reflect the very truths the projector is desperately trying to avoid seeing in themselves.
And the danger isn't just projection itself, it's the conviction part.
That's the deadly ingredient. Absolute, unshakable conviction. Jung talked about patients who were causing immense psychological damage to others, wrecking relationships, yet maintained this aura of complete innocence. They genuinely 100% believed their distorted version of reality.
And science backs this up now, doesn't it? The sources mention brain activity.
Yeah, modern research suggests that during really intense projection, the brain can actually rewire its perception of reality. It activates neural pathways similar to those seen in delusional states. The projector isn't just lying consciously. They are operating within a self-created reality distortion field.
A reality distortion field? That sounds serious.
It is. And their certainty is infectious. They use that absolute conviction to pull other people in, to recruit them into this state of, collective possession, getting them to see the target through the same warped lens.
So whole groups can turn against one person based on this projection.
Tragically, yes. This is why spotting the red flags is so crucial. It's not just about understanding psychology, it's about psychological self-defense.
Okay, let's lay them out. We pulled 5 key warning signs from the sources, essential for that protection protocol we mentioned. What's sign number 1?
Absolute certainty. Pay close attention to their language. They don't tend to use qualifiers like I feel or it seems to me.
No, maybes or perhapses.
Very few. Instead, it's declarative statements about your inner world. You are trying to hurt me. You are manipulative. Your intention was to abandon me. They state your internal reality as if it's objective fact.
That's a big one. Okay.
Yeah.
And sign number 2, what happens if you try to argue or present evidence?
That brings us to immunity to evidence. Any attempt you make to correct their perception, offer facts, explain your actual intentions, it doesn't matter.
It just bounces off.
Worse, it gets twisted. Your attempts to clarify are interpreted as further proof of their original accusation. See, you're denying it. That just proves how manipulative you are. You literally cannot win with logic.
Okay, impossible to reason with. Got it. Sign number 3, about emotions.
Yes, disproportionate emotional intensity. Their reactions, the rage, the tears, the accusations of betrayal are often wildly out of proportion to whatever minor slight or even non-existent slight supposedly triggered it.
So the reaction doesn't match the situation?
Not even close. The intensity reflects the magnitude of their projected shadow material, not your actual behavior. It's their inner stuff spilling out.
Which probably connects to the 4th sign, the story they tell about themselves.
Exactly. Consistent victim narratives. If you look at their history, they are always the innocent victim. Partners, bosses, friends, family members. The cast might change, but the plot remains the same. They were wronged, betrayed, misunderstood, manipulated.
They never seem to take responsibility for their part in conflicts.
Rarely, if ever. It's always someone else's fault. This pattern is a huge red flag.
Okay. And the 5th sign, this is where it gets really dangerous, involving other people.
Yes, recruitment behavior. This is crucial. They don't just hold their distorted view, they actively try, subtly or sometimes quite overtly, to get others to see you through that same negative lens.
Like trying to turn people against you.
Essentially, yes.
Huh.
It might start out looking like they're just sharing their concerns or warning others about you, but the underlying goal is to validate their projection by creating an echo chamber. They need allies in their distortion field.
Wow. So when you see these 5 signs together, the certainty, immunity to facts, huge emotions, victim story, and recruiting others, you're likely dealing with something seriously destructive.
You are facing a psychological pattern that can be incredibly damaging to the person being targeted. It's vital to recognize it.
Okay. Beyond this specific dynamic of projection, Jung also flagged other psychological pitfalls, right? Things that can lead to destruction, both in the person themselves and those around them. Especially relevant if someone has insight but hasn't integrated it.
Absolutely. A major one is ego inflation. Some call it the prophet complex.
Prophet complex.
Yeah. This happens when someone identifies their personal ego, their sense of I, with these huge, powerful archetypes from the collective unconscious. They start to believe they are the savior, or the ultimate wise person, or the righteous judge, or even the voice of God.
So they might seem really charismatic or enlightened on the surface.
Often, yes.
Right.
But the telltale signs are that absolute certainty, again, rigid thinking and interpreting any disagreement or questioning, not just as a difference of opinion, but as resistance to truth itself or an attack on goodness.
And Jung warned these types cause a lot of damage.
Devastating damage, potentially, because they operate without normal human limits or self-doubt, convinced of their divine mandate. They bulldoze over others until, inevitably, the psychological pressure becomes too much and they collapse.
Okay, so that's ego inflation. What else? There was something about a perfect mask.
Right, persona identification, the perfect person problem. This is when someone completely identifies with their social mask, the flawless, polished image they present to the world.
Seems harmless enough, maybe a bit annoying, but dangerous.
The danger lies in what's hidden behind the perfection. It often conceals a terrifying inner emptiness and huge amounts of repressed shadow material, all the messy, imperfect bits of themselves they deny.
So the more perfect the mask,
the more volatile the contents underneath. And the danger is the sudden, explosive shadow eruption that can happen when that perfect image is threatened or cracks. It's like a psychological dam breaking. It can be incredibly destructive, seemingly out of nowhere.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the last pattern. Something about repeating painful situations.
Ah, yes, the compulsion to repeat. This is a really common and often tragic pattern. It's that unconscious drive where someone keeps finding themselves in the same kind of painful situation over and over again.
Like always picking partners who betray them or getting fired for the same reasons.
Exactly. And crucially, they usually see themselves purely as victims of bad luck or fate. Why does this always happen to me?
But Jung saw something deeper going on. He called it negative synchronicity.
Yes. He suggested they are unconsciously sending out signals, attracting people who are primed to play specific detrimental roles. The abandoner, the critic, the betrayer roles needed to restage their unresolved inner psychological dramas.
So if you recognize that pattern in yourself or someone else, it's a sign.
It's a huge sign that you or they might be caught in an unconscious script, a script that needs to be brought into conscious awareness to break the cycle. Otherwise, you just keep playing the same scene again and again.
Okay, so we've laid out the dangers. The burden of perception itself, the threat of projection, these other pitfalls like inflation and repetition. The big question then becomes, if this superior perception can either destroy you or transform you, how do you actually choose transformation?
Well, Jung's whole framework points towards the path, the individuation process. It's about integrating all these disparate parts of the psyche.
And how does that work specifically for someone dealing with this intense perception?
It's generally seen as having a few key phases. Phase 1 is recognition and differentiation. This is fundamental. You have to start consciously sorting out what psychological content truly belongs to you versus what you've absorbed from others or what might be your own projections onto others.
How do you even begin to do that when you're flooded?
Jung's practical advice was often startlingly simple: daily solitude. You need regular time alone, away from the psychological noise of others, to allow all that absorbed material to settle, to let the psychic sediment fall to the bottom so you can start hearing your own authentic voice again.
Okay, solitude to differentiate. Then what? Phase 2.
Phase 2 is the really challenging work, shadow impression. This is about having the courage to acknowledge that you yourself contain the potential for every human quality, positive and negative, that you observe so clearly in others.
Meaning you have to own your own dark side.
Precisely. Jung was adamant. You can't truly see others clearly and compassionately until you've first had the courage to look honestly into your own depths. Integrating your shadow allows you to observe without the distortions of judgment or your own unconscious projections.
Okay. That sounds like lifelong work.
It absolutely is, and that leads to phase 3, conscious participation. This is about developing what Jungian sometimes call psychological containers.
Container.
The ability to consciously and temporarily hold the unconscious contents of others, their projections, their pain, their chaos, maybe engaging with it compassionately, but without losing your own center, without getting swamped or identified with it.
So you can interact with the chaos without becoming it.
That's the goal. It's the difference, maybe, between someone like Nietzsche, whose incredible insights remain unintegrated, arguably becoming a weapon against society and contributing to his isolation and collapse,
Right.
versus someone like, say, Meister Eckhart, the mystic, who seemed able to channel profound, intuitive understanding into wisdom and compassionate service, remaining grounded. Integration makes all the difference.
Okay, so integration is the path to transformation. But for the listener who might be facing some of those destructive projections right now, those 5 signs we talked about, what's the immediate protection protocol?
Yeah.
Jung offered practical steps, right?
Yes, very practical and crucial. First,
Right.
and maybe most importantly, trust your gut.
Right.
Your internal sense of reality. If someone's description of you, especially if delivered with that absolute conviction, consistently feels wrong, feels alien to your own experience of yourself, trust your internal reality. That boundary is your first defense.
Okay, trust your gut. Number 2, this one feels tricky.
It is. Don't argue.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive, especially when you feel unjustly accused. But remember, sign number 2, immunity to evidence.
Right, arguing just feeds the projection.
Exactly. They aren't operating on logic. The projection serves a deep, unconscious need for them. Trying to convince them with facts is usually futile and just drains your energy. It validates their sense that you're resisting the truth.
Okay, resist the urge to debate. Number 3.
Limit information. Be mindful about what personal details you share. Projections often work by taking kernels of truth and twisting them, re-editing your life story to fit the distorted narrative. Don't give them unnecessary ammunition.
Be more guarded with personal stuff. Makes sense. Number 4.
Seek outside perspective. This is vital. Talk to trusted friends, a therapist, anyone who is outside the projector's distortion field. Reality check your perceptions with people who aren't caught up in that dynamic. Projection thrives in isolation. Breaking that isolation is key.
Get a sanity check from someone objective. Good advice.
Mm-hmm.
And the final step, sometimes the hardest.
Definitely the hardest sometimes. Strategic withdrawal. Recognize that there are situations, especially if someone consistently exhibits multiple dangerous signs, where the only way to end the game is, well, not to play.
Meaning?
Meaning sometimes extraction, creating distance, limiting contact, or even ending the relationship might be the only sustainable way to protect your psychological well-being. It's not failure, it's recognizing an unwinnable battle fought on delusional terms.
Okay, so trust your gut, don't argue, limit info, get outside perspective, and know when to withdraw. That's a solid protocol.
It's about preserving your own psychological integrity.
So wrapping this up, the core insight here for anyone listening who resonates with this feeling of seeing too much is maybe you're not broken, you're not flawed because you perceive things others miss.
Not at all. If anything, Jung's perspective suggests you might be, in a way, psychologically ahead of your time.
And this perception, if it's integrated through that individuation process, it becomes something valuable. Jung called it cultural medicine.
Yes, that's the potential. The individual who navigates this, who integrates this difficult gift, doesn't just heal themselves, they potentially become a kind of consciousness pioneer, someone who helps the collective evolve, helping us all become aware of psychological territories we need to explore.
Which brings us to a final thought, building on that. Jung famously said, "What is not brought to consciousness comes to us as fate."
A powerful statement.
So if these highly perceptive individuals are like advanced scouts, sensing things humanity needs to confront, what collective fate, what potential catastrophe may be in our families, our workplaces, our society, even globally might they be sensing right now? What are they trying, perhaps unconsciously, to help us all make conscious before it manifests destructively?
That's quite a question to ponder. What collective shadow are they reflecting back at us right now?
Definitely something to think about. Thank you for this incredibly insightful deep dive.
Thank you. It's vital material.